Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BJJ Brick Podcast. Today we have episode 299, and for all you math majors, that's one episode short of 300. I'm Gary. I got my partners in crime, Byron Jabara and Joe Thomas here with me today, and we are going to talk about your jiu-jitsu coach. How are you guys doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. It's springtime down here in the Gulf South. Weather's been beautiful, so I'm doing good. How about you, Gary?
I'm doing fabulous. What about you, Byron?
Doing good. Excited today for this episode talking about jiu-jitsu coaches, I guess. It's hard to talk about your particular coach because, we might know you, we might not know you, but we're talking about coaches in general, what to expect out of your coach, and the relationship you have between coach and student or athlete. A lot of different things that could happen here. We'll see where we go. We got a little bit of outline typed up, and we're going to work from, but it's a topic episode because it's the last episode of the month.
So basically, we're all going to be interviewing ourselves, right?
That's right. We are the so-called experts this episode.
Well, I think you guys are in trouble if we're the experts, but stay tuned for this award-winning podcast.
That was last week, was the award-winning podcast. This is just a regular podcast. I guess the whole thing is award-winning, isn't it? We did win that high ranking anyway.
Yeah, we're second in the world.
It's not the only thing about this podcast that's high ranking.
What else is high ranking, Byron?
Our audiobook for your first year of BJJ. If you find yourself in the spot where you're new to jiu-jitsu, or maybe you found the podcast because you're thinking about doing jiu-jitsu and you just haven't quite made it happen yet, the audiobook Your First Year of Jiu-Jitsu is tailor-made to help you out. It's really anybody who's almost started to somebody that's 6 months in and still has some questions, because we all need a little bit of guidance in that first year. Yeah, the audiobook is about 2.5 hours long. It's me, Byron, just talking to you, and I walk you through 6 chapters of your first year, and I really have enjoyed this as an outlet to help people get a good start to jiu-jitsu. I wish I had something like this when I was brand new, and I know Gary does as well. But jiu-jitsu is tough. It's not an easy thing to start. You're going to have, even if you're like excited about it, your first couple weeks in are really fun, exciting, and man, this is really crazy how good people could get at jiu-jitsu. That'll fade, and you'll hit that 3 month or 6 month span where it's just hard. And that the book is really designed to get you on the mat, get you comfortable, and make it to where you can stick with it for the first year. Because really, that first year is a big one. And if you can get through that with a smile on your face, you're going to stick on the mats. You're going to continue to have success through jiu-jitsu. So check it out. The book is $11.99. There's a link to the download in your show notes there, or you can go to the website, bjjbrick.com. It pops right up.
Byron, you were saying, I wished I had a podcast like that, or an audiobook like that when I first started, but were there audiobooks back then? We've been training so long.
Well, I'm sorry.
I don't even know if podcasts are out.
Books on tape. You wish it was a book on tape back then.
Okay, Betamax. I think that would have worked better.
Joe had a more successful start to his jiu-jitsu, but Gary and I were just fumbling all over the place.
I don't know about all that, guys. But I appreciate that you're showing me some respect. And speaking of respect, our quote of the week is by Dave Willis, and it says, "Show respect even to people who don't deserve it, not as a reflection of their character, but as a reflection of yours." And this is a great life lesson, but man, it applies to jiu-jitsu as well. I mean, I think it's important you go on the mat and you just approach everyone with respect. If somebody isn't deserving of it, they'll prove it later, but you can't take the attitude that somebody has to earn my respect. I go on the jiu-jitsu mat and I see people on there. If I go visit a gym, everybody on there, I know they've put in some blood, sweat, and tears just like I have. And, I respect everybody on the mat. It makes for better relationships. So great quote by Dave Willis. Byron, tell me what you think about that quote.
It's a good
No,
one.
I'm hijacking it right here. I hate to say this, like for the 7th week in a row, but Joe, you won the interwebs or the podcast. I love what you said. I don't expect people to earn my respect. I go in and show people respect, and I think there's the quote right there. And the old saying, these people have to earn my respect. I just love what you're saying. Hey, let's be open-minded to everybody. Like you said, anybody who's out there on the mat, has put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. Let's benefit of the doubt to everybody. Let's show everybody respect. And normally, if you go in with that attitude, everybody's going to show you respect back. I mean, there's always going to be a bad apple or two, Byron, for an example. But the majority of the people are going to be great people. And, as to show your character, just respect everybody, and stuff will fall into place.
Gary, I don't know what the prize is for winning the internet, but I'm looking forward to when they start rolling in.
Yeah, it's digital.
Well, it only comes once a month, Joe. It's you should be getting I think this month is blueberry jelly, and next month is elderberry. So you should be getting that shortly. It says from your cousin Eddie. Should be sending it to
the gift that keeps on giving.
You got it.
Yeah, you used to pay it in Bitcoin, but they stopped doing that a while ago. But man, you should have been winning the internet a couple years ago, Joe.
You'd be rich. Yeah.
Day late, $1 short.
But yeah, I don't really like the quote. My wife stumbled upon it and said, "You should put this on your show." And if she says that, I basically do that. She has a good filter, so I'll read it one more time. Show respect even to people who don't deserve it, not as a reflection of their character, but as a reflection of yours. And that's just a great way to how you hold yourself is be respectful to people. And I just think of. I literally don't know what people are going through, especially strangers, if they're having a hard time or if they're kind of rude. Like Gary said, give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think it makes your life easier as well as other people's life better. So show respect to people. It's a pretty simple concept, and I think Dave Willis hit the nail on the head instead of on the thumb.
Yeah, Byron, I can say I've known you for a long time, and you are probably the epitome of this, like your wife said, you always are nice to people. You're always the first person to introduce yourself. You're always the first person, if somebody says something derogatory about that person, you always change it around. You're a very good teacher of life skills and stuff like that. Like I think at times, and I've said something negative about somebody, and you've kind of, try to change that around. So, I wish I could be like that all the time, but if I'm not, you always get me back on track. And Joe, you already showed your character talking about it. I don't know why I hang out with good people like you. Well, I guess I don't know why you guys let me hang out with you, but thank you. You guys are teaching me some lessons.
Gary, because of you, I'm a better man.
Said no woman ever.
Things just got weird.
That's not what she said.
Okay, so it's time for the off the mat lesson, and this is when we take something that happened in our regular days and take it onto the mat, or vice versa. And I have a good one this week, and I've been talking to the guys here about how I'm really into coaching my basketball team. I'm coaching a 12 and under advanced travel basketball team, and kind of having a blast doing it. And I haven't coached basketball in years, and I'm just loving it. And I've been telling these guys how we're losing a lot of games this year, but we're having fun and we're getting better every year. That's a little background on my team. But one good lesson that these kids taught me here a couple weeks ago was we've had some issues with some of our teammates. A couple people can't play. Maybe kid got put in juvie. Maybe another kid is too old to be on the team and lied about his age. And we've just had a whole bunch of little hard
Sounds like
luck
the
stuff.
Bad News Bears kind of a thing.
Oh, no, we've got some good kids. It's just...
remember that
just
movie?
some stuff. Yeah, great movie. I actually watched Bad News Bears go to Japan this weekend.
You're like the Walter Matthau.
I don't know about that. I don't drink or I do cuss, but
okay, I don't need to derail your story.
Yeah. But these guys, we've ran into a bunch of, our two best players aren't on the team anymore, and so I'm playing with a bunch of guys, a bunch of kids who played in the intermediate league, and this is our first year jumping up to the heavy league here. And, so we've taken some bumps and bruises. Well, we were winning games till we lost a couple players, but as the seasons went on, we've lost a couple more. So, we had a game here about a week and a half ago, and, we show up all ready to play, and we're playing one of the really good teams. So, we were kind of, I think anybody would have thought we'd probably get beat by, 10, 15 points easily. And we show up for the game, we're warming up, and all of a sudden it comes time, the buzzer sounds and it's ready to start the game, and we look around and there's only 4 people on our team. And, I knew it and our other coach knew it, but we hadn't heard from any of the other players, and, we were just hoping they were going to show up, and nobody did. And all of a sudden about that point, our kids see that we only got 4 people. And, they're like, oh, what are we going to do? And the referee comes over and he's like, hey, do you got where's your 5th? You might have to forfeit. And, we talked them into letting us play with 4. And, our kids, when they found out we could play, even though we had 4 players and we were playing 4-on-5. So, I mean, it wasn't a 4-on-4 game. This was a game that was going to count, and it was 4 against 5. And, my kids all had a smile on their face. They just like, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to have fun. We're going to be tired, but the cool thing is we get to play the whole game, and we're just going to go out and try our hardest. And, these kids, they could have adopted another attitude and said, hey, we have no chance to win. This is one of the better teams in the league. A team that beat us by 30 points, this team basically took them into overtime the week before. So, we were big underdogs. And these kids just came out, had a smile on their face, played as hard as they could. I'm proud to say we were up at halftime, and, we had the other team so scared that they pressed us the whole second half. We were up 20-15 at halftime, and, we got a little tired and we had a little trouble against that 4-on-5 press in the second half, and we ended up losing 48-44. But in my opinion, it was the best game we ever played. And, those kids, they just fought their hearts out, and they had a smile on their face the whole time. And, even when they were done, they were just so happy of their how hard they played and their, what they did. And, I just think it's a good reminder that stuff's not always going to go our way. Stuff didn't go these kids' way. The game could have been called off. It wasn't. These kids were happy that they got to play. And, they made a best out of a situation that looked like there was, a really bad situation. And, they didn't care that we didn't win. They got to play. They played their hearts out, and they realized how great they did. And I think if they had that mindset that, hey, we're just going to get destroyed, we would have got destroyed. And it was funny. It wasn't a pep talk for me and the other coach. It was just the kids were like, cool, because at first they thought the game was going to be canceled, and when they found out they could play, they all just gave it everything they had. And I was so proud of the kids, and I was so proud to be on the sidelines associated with that team.
Man, Gary, that's great. You're building a team there, and regardless of the results, those kids are having a great experience together, and with your guidance and your leadership there, there's more to playing basketball, or there's more to jiu-jitsu, there's more to everything like these sports, than the results you get in the actual event. And I think you're teaching those kids some big lessons. And sometimes, they might be in their 30s or 40s or whatever, and they look at the cards and they're stacked against them. Like, it's not fair. This isn't a fair game. This isn't a fair matchup. This isn't a fair business dealing. This isn't something is not right. But you know what? Get out there and do your best and make the most of it. And taught them that early on. That's great, Gary.
Yep, and I mean, it just goes straight over to jiu-jitsu. Everything we do in jiu-jitsu. I mean, some days we're going to show up and there's depending on, what size of city you live in or how long your school's been, but there may be only, 4 or 5 people at practice. And, you're like, hey, I'm only going to get 4 different rolling partners. Or, you could go to a tournament and you find out in round 1, like you said, you have a ADC qualifier, ADCC qualifier in your first match. And, you can, get upset and saying, hey, there's a good chance I'm going to lose, or you can just go out and say, hey, I got nothing to lose. I'm going to give it all I got. And like you said, Byron, the winning or losing, doesn't, quantify you, doesn't, show the value of it. You're just going to go out, have fun, and learn from it. And, even if you lose, you had a good time and with a smile on your face, and that's what counts.
Gary, that's the best life lesson we've had in like a week. No, on a serious note, that's the best thing I've heard today. That just brought a smile to my face. I don't think it's overstating it really to say that those kids, those boys, are going to be better men because of this experience, because of this basketball season. It's been a tough season, and today they stood up, or whenever this game was, they stood up, and man, they were all they could be. I guess that's an Army slogan, but yeah, it's fighting those battles. That's what sports are so good for kids. It's fighting those battles, and it's going to make them better men. And the one thing I'd like to point out about jiu-jitsu and this story that you've told is a lot of guys, when you first start to coach, you start to teach. What does the coach let you do? He has you teach in the kids class, and it's just teaching jiu-jitsu, but really you're teaching a lot more than jiu-jitsu.
Life lessons. Yep.
Yeah, this right here is a perfect example of the impact that coaches can have on the kids that they work with.
Well, I almost look at it the other way, the impact that these kids had on us, because really there was no, maybe for some reason, these kids were like, hey, I'm rallying behind the coaches, but we really didn't say anything. It was, I learned so much from just watching these kids. All of a sudden, when they found out the game's not going to be a forfeit and we get into play, just a smile on their face. And, there was no pep talk for me. I kind of already told you guys I tried to pep talk them a couple weeks ago and it failed miserably. But, I learned so much from these kids. These kids just, taught me lessons. There's sometimes I walk into work, and today's a good example. 2 of my loan officers were out, and, I'm missing 2 out of 6, 33% of that side of my team there. And on a Monday, which is a very busy day, I could, throw my hands in the air and, start cussing, or I can get a smile on my face and say, bring it on. Here's a wall. I'm going to climb over it. I'm going to, lead from the front. And that's what those kids did. And, I know that day when I walked out of that building, I walked out of that building like on cloud 9. My head was high. I'm like, I'm walking with a bunch of gladiators right here.
Yeah, playing a whole game 5 against 4 and losing by 4 points. That's pretty spectacular, really.
Yeah. Yep. And
Yep, that's good. And part of that is your coaching, Gary. And that's
I don't know about that.
The main topic of today's episode is your jiu-jitsu coach, or what to expect out of your jiu-jitsu coach, and what to look for in that relationship. And it is a relationship between the student and the coach. And you might be a coach. I know we have lots of coaches that listen to the show, and we have lots of students that listen to the show that have that relationship with the coach. What do you guys think of that? Is it a business relationship, or is it a personal relationship, or is it a how would you describe the relationship between a coach and a student?
Go ahead, Joe.
No, actually, I was just going to say I didn't anticipate that was going to be your first question, Byron.
That's a tough one. But, I think that's a really tough question right there. Not all the time is the coach, really the owner. But, I do think there is a business relationship also. I mean, I think I've seen many gyms have trouble if it's too friendly of a gym and dues are not paid on time. Dues are just not paid sometimes. They're paid late. That can really hurt a school. So I do think you have to have that business relationship. You need to pay up. You need to pay seminars. If you order gear, you need to pay the gear. you have to do that. But I also think, there's a big personal aspect there of the coach too that is going to, help you on your journey, and not only your jiu-jitsu journey. That coach is going to be there for other things, a mentor, a father figure, a mother figure, just to help you out. And really, if your coach is like that, your whole school's like that. It bleeds down from the top. Your students are all going to be there for each other. It's going to be a family atmosphere, and they're going to hold each other accountable, not only to, show up for class, if you're sick or out for a while, they're going to check up on you, but they're also going to make sure you pay your dues to keep this school working, because, it's one for all for one. You guys are everyone's in it together to make this a better entity.
Yeah, that's hopefully the way it's going. And I think like looking at whether it's a business relationship or personal relationship, it largely depends on the individual relationship. There are thousands of different combinations of relationships with your coach or with your students that can kind of a combination of those two, or even some other things that could appear. I mean, easily can see like a family relationship with the coach as well. Like, I mean, that could be your mother is the coach, or maybe your brother is a coach, or something like that. That's also important to notice. But the most typical is the business relationship that you have, as Gary was getting to. Like you pay the gym, and you do that in a timely manner, and they act like a professional. And then the personal relationship is just because jiu-jitsu is so personal. This doesn't happen when you go, I don't know, go to the store or go get your car repaired or something like that. There's not that same relationship that you have with your coach. It's definitely there's a personal relationship there as well. And so it kind of goes into this gray area where I think it gets a little bit more challenging when you want to change schools or something like that. Like, the business relationship is one thing. Like, okay, that's minus X amount of money for the business to be running each month. But it's also like, it's kind of like you break up with somebody, and it kind of hurts a little bit sometimes. And sometimes that maybe the coach is like, well, good luck and good riddance, or something like that. But most of the time, coaches, enjoy their students. And so they can be a little bit hurt by students leaving personally, and not just as a business relationship. So I think that's just an important thing to look at. Kind of, where is your relationship with your coach? Do you feel like they're a friend? Do you feel like you would invite them to a party? Would you invite them to a birthday party, or just to watching the fights, or watching ADCC on pay-per-view type of thing, or does it you just show up and you learn jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. Or going to the trampoline park?
Or going to the trampoline park, yes.
That sounds fun. When I was listening to you guys talk about this, I started thinking about it from the aspect of, would I rather have a relationship with my coach that was more a business relationship or a personal relationship? And to me, the obvious answer is I'd rather have it more like a personal relationship. And when it becomes a business relationship is when my coach has to come and remind me to pay my dues. And, if there's expectations and I'm not meeting them, then he's got to come remind me of that. So from a student's perspective, if I want a personal relationship with my coach and I don't want it to be about business or about money, I can make some headway there by paying my dues on time and meeting all the expectations, and then that gets that out of the way. I know that's part of the relationship already. I've got an agreement with the gym to pay them X amount of money to train every month, and I just pay that and I get that out of the way, and then that makes that separate from my relationship with my coach.
Yep. That's a good point, Joe, and I was going to go back to that. Something that you said, Byron. You were talking about, the business relationship, and you were saying, if you go get your car fixed, it's just a business relationship. You don't have that personal relationship. But there are times where you go to different places. Let's say you go get your car fixed. They remember you from last time and the time before. They remember talking to you about, your kid, or that you do jiu-jitsu, and you go in there and they're like, hey, you here for your oil change? Hey, how's jiu-jitsu going? You have any tournaments? How's the basketball team doing? You watch the Laker game, or they know stuff about you, and that relationship is just incredible. So I mean, you think about, we're talking about the jiu-jitsu and a business relationship that you have at most jiu-jitsu schools. But when you do have it at a place of business, a place where you actually shop and, exchange commerce, we just look at that as such incredible service. And it just seems like the majority of the jiu-jitsu gyms, I guess maybe because, jiu-jitsu is so fun, but it just seems like, that personal relationship is always there. But, the business, I just love going into businesses that remember you, that throw that personal aspect out there. It's just something that I remember, and that's a place I'm going to shop, and I'm going to pay more money for that. Like these jiu-jitsu owners, you own a club. I'll always pay more money for places where I feel like I'm treated awesome. People know my name, and I know you're going to know that in, jiu-jitsu places, but, ask me about my family, ask me about my kids, or just little things like that goes a long way.
Yeah, and I think Joe has a good point as well, as far as like pay your dues on time. And just we talked about the quote, like, I don't know what you're going through, so if you're kind of a jerk today, I'll give you the pass. And maybe you're looking at getting fired, or maybe you've got the repo guys coming to take your car, Gary, or something like that. But think of it from the coach's point of view. Maybe the coach is looking at the spreadsheet and it's like, man, it's gonna be tough to pay all these, pay the rent and pay the water bill and all this stuff coming in, and then look at the students, and you're one of the ones that hasn't paid yet, and your coach might seem a little bit, just subconsciously may not be as friendly to you that day, because like you're not part of the solution yet this month, or you're late, or that sort of thing. So it's not going to hurt your relationship with the coach on a personal level if you, like Joe was saying, strengthen the business side of that relationship. You pay your dues on time, or if you have something worked out to where you clean the gym instead of work something out to where if you can't afford to pay or something like that, but you're a part of that team, and it's just, if you're stressing your coach about money, it might be a little bit harder for them to just open up and invest that time in you. That would be a little less frustrating. You don't think so, Gary?
No, yeah, I agree with that. But what I was going to say is, we're always going to run into troubles, financial issues or whatever, and you may be really having a hard time. But instead of not paying your coach, and you may not have the money, talk to your coach. Let your coach know. And I mean, that's what we're going to do on the personal side. If I have an issue with Byron, I'm going to talk to him. If I have an issue with Joe, I'm going to talk to him. So, always let your coach know about little things that are going to happen. If you're struggling, like Byron said, if your car got repoed, and but Joe makes a great point. It's the school is there for the betterment of everybody, and we need to all pitch in to make that better, and for the instructor to keep the lights on, keep mats there, be able to buy mat cleaner, be able to travel to tournaments with you. We need to he needs to make some money. He needs to more than break even.
Yeah, this is a side note. It doesn't have much to do with your coach, but I want to say I could count 6 or 8 places that I've trained on a regular basis where I have not had the normal traditional month-to-month dues, because I'm only there part of the month, or because I didn't have the money early on. And in every case, I've come to some sort of an alternative agreement with the owner and the coach of the gym. Maybe I just pay per visit, or maybe I pay for 2 weeks out of the month, or maybe I bring them seafood back when I was a fisherman. So if you're listening and this is an issue for you, talk to your coach, and maybe you can come to some sort of an agreement. I've never had a coach. I've never seen a coach turn somebody down that wanted to learn jiu-jitsu and was willing to pay what they could afford.
Yep. And for some of you guys who haven't listened a lot to all 299 of our podcasts, but Joe, you work 14 on, 14 off. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yep.
And
So that's why he's running into issues sometimes. He's in Houston for 14 days and he's out to sea for 14 days. So a little different there. Schedule is what Joe's got going on. Because the reason I was doing that, Joe, I just got a text from one of our listeners who just heard that. And they thought maybe you were in jail for 14 days and they let you out. And I just wanted to clear things up. Joe is not a criminal.
And Joe goes right back in as soon as he gets out.
And I know we've talked about Joe, having issues with fish cops here the last couple episodes. But no, Joe is a law-abiding citizen.
Well, it's not that I'm a law-abiding citizen, Gary. It's just work release doesn't work that way. I'm in for the weekends, and I'm out Monday through Friday.
So what kind of things do you look for in a coach? As far as, I guess there's different, I mean, we're using coach as somebody who teaches you jiu-jitsu, but you might be looking at a person who is coaching you on the sidelines or teaching you technique. We're kind of looking at all under the kind of the same umbrella, but at some gyms, these might be different people. What are some qualities that you guys kind of look for when you're trying to, maybe you have a buddy call you up and say, hey, I'm trying to make a decision on which gym to go to, and tell me about your coaches. What would you look for?
The great thing about that is, and we're talking about the personal or the business relationship, but, the great thing about that is everybody needs different stuff. Byron, Joe, and I are not the same. Byron wishes he was I, but it doesn't happen. But, we all have unique characteristics, and, I doubt ours are going to be the same. But the one thing I look for right off the bat is a really personable coach. Maybe if I was younger, I'd want, the hardcore coach. But, I just want somebody who, I guess can make me laugh, just makes me happy to be there. It sounds kind of weird, but that's just me. I just like just a very happy-go-lucky person, that knows jiu-jitsu. I want somebody who knows jiu-jitsu. You definitely need that as your coach. But, the first thing that comes off to me is the personality. I've seen people who aren't very talkative and, still that can make a great coach. I'm not saying it doesn't, but, I always like the person who's talkative, will joke around, and very personable.
Gary, I like what you said there about everybody's needs something different. So it'd be damn near impossible to describe the perfect coach. But one thing I have found that I appreciate over the last couple of years. So if I were to move tomorrow and I moved to a city that had 3 or 4 different gyms, I would look for this. I have found that I appreciate a coach that puts a lot of work into coming up with a plan, a curriculum, a training regimen, so that they put a lot of thought into it. And I'm not smart enough necessarily to know which plan is best. But just the fact that the coach is putting that kind of effort into it is something that I really appreciate. One of the coaches that I train with now has a system where he's constantly a different position every day. And if you just randomly come to 7 or 8 classes in a month, you're likely to get 7 or 8 different positions. But then on the other hand, he kind of ties it all together. If you're a regular student, you're going to get it's all going to fit together. And he puts a lot of thought into it. I don't know if it's the best plan, but I appreciate the work that he's put into it. And that's something I would always look for.
I like what you're saying there, Joe. I've talked to people whose coach has like an online video library where, classes are taped and they're put in there, you get a little password and, you can go back and kind of like in your situation, you can go back and, check out the classes you may miss to see what's going on. But, it makes me think of the coach who puts in, who has a plan, who, puts in that extra work to, make sure you're going to get the most out of it. I know one time we talked to Will Horniff, one of the early episodes out of New York City there. And I remember he was talking about having video monitors in every corner of the gym. And, as he was going over stuff, it was also being broadcast on the video monitors. Like somebody may get a better, be able to see better on a video monitor depending on where they're at. I just thought that was kind of a cool idea. But, just some of these people are just putting extra thought into how to teach their students better, how to, get it across and make your students better. That's, incredible. And I remember, at our first BJJ Brick event last year, Rolly Delgado, Tim Sled, and Jake Fox were all sitting around talking, and I was kind of listening into them. And that's what they were talking about. They were talking about how to teach better. And they weren't talking about how to have better, a better way to hold the elbow. They were talking about how to articulate it better, how to, articulate the masses better, how everybody's different, and, how they can become better at getting across their points and everything. And, that just struck me as an instructor that really cares, is really professional, really has a plan to make you better.
Man, let me just give a shout out to those three guys real quick, because they weren't sitting around talking about how to recruit more students or how to charge more money or how to put on bigger seminars. I think that's awesome that you're listening to these three guys in a candid moment, and what they're talking about is how they can better teach jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was out of the whole weekend. That's really what got me the most. Just hearing that, and it just made me realize that there's some incredible people out there.
Yep, I'm looking forward to the next BJJ Brick event.
Gary, I thought you said when you got to roll a show was the best part. You changed your mind?
Yeah, I changed my mind. Yeah, sorry, Joe.
But if we would have recorded it and if we would have uploaded it, we would have won the internet.
Well, you would have. You always win the internet. I just won it this week. I don't win it constantly.
He tries to win his rolls.
Yeah, dinner rolls.
Looking at kind of what I value in a jiu-jitsu coach, I think you guys have some great points, and Gary's getting at like teaching skill. That's a big one. So I do appreciate a high knowledge base. So you could go up to somebody and say, hey, I'm in this particular spot in side control. I've got the arm moved in this way, and they start to rotate this way, and like get like real specific about some little facet of jiu-jitsu, and it's like, boom, they've got an answer set up for that. Wow, that's really cool. There's a lot to jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of little tiny details that can be very important, and some people are better at just knowing a lot of jiu-jitsu. I don't think of myself as that type of a grappler. The stuff I know, I try to get a deep knowledge base in it, but there's large parts of the game I know very little about. And so if somebody come up to me and they ask me, okay, so in De La Hiva, what do I do after I get to De La Hiva? I'm like, I don't know. Let's go ask this guy. I don't play De La Hiva guard. I never really have. But I'd be more than happy to point you to the right way. But if like the coach is the coach of the school and it's like one black belt and 30 white belts, that wide knowledge base is pretty important. And I think if that was me, I would start branching out and trying to get that wider knowledge base, because you can't outsource it to your teammates necessarily.
Yeah, Byron, let me interrupt real quick though. But I would really respect a coach, who says, or I'm going to give you two scenarios, who says, hey, I really don't have a lot of experience with that position. Let me get you with Byron. Not afraid to admit that's not his best position, and says, hey, this guy here at our school is better. But you bring up the second point, let's say you only have one black belt, you're kind of a small school, and let's say everybody else is a blue belt, so you don't have a ton of knowledge there. But I would also respect, hey, I don't have a ton of knowledge in that spot. Let me do some research. Let me talk to some people. Let me check some stuff out. And is it okay if I get back with you and Thursday night and I help you out there too? I respect that. I'm not going to because I don't think everybody's going to have the best, be able to have an answer for everything. And, jiu-jitsu, we never really become the master. We're always growing.
Yeah.
Byron, you talked a little bit about coaches that are like specialized. They're good in one aspect, or maybe they're specialist, and then that wider knowledge base. I appreciate, from a student's perspective, people that teach concepts and fundamentals.
Yes.
And when they're teaching a move, it's not so much about the specific details for that move, but it's about the fundamentals and the concepts that make that work. And that way, if the coach happens to be like an open guard specialist, that's what they're really good at. They're not teaching me the details necessarily of those techniques, but they're teaching me about base and balance and off balancing my opponent. And so if they teach that way, even if they're a specialist, I can still benefit greatly from their teaching if my game is different from theirs.
That's a good point, Joe. There's a lot of different aspects to teaching, and concepts are kind of a good way to teach a class, because the classroom setting is not the perfect place to learn jiu-jitsu. It's the perfect place to teach a lot of people jiu-jitsu, but each of us are individuals with their own personalized games, and you're trying to teach a class to everybody that hopefully they can pick it up. But when you can explain the concepts, that I think benefits the group as a whole in a bigger way.
Just hearing, concepts. When I first started jiu-jitsu, I was taught moves, and once I started hearing some concepts, and I remember I on the internet, I was listening to Jason Scully there, talking about a Kimura, concepts on the Kimura. And that blew me away, just the way he explained it. And, it wasn't necessarily a new move, but it was the concepts. And that really changed my game, just concepts. And, when you brought that up, Joe, I was like, that's gospel right there. That's something that, really, when somebody can really explain that to me, my game changes big time.
That's gospel. So did I win the Bible too, Gary?
Joe, you're trying to win everything.
I appreciate it, man.
Jesus might have won that one, Joe.
I think you're right. I'm not in the running.
What belt is he?
I don't know.
Does he have a high knowledge base?
I bet you he's professional and on time. That's one thing some things about your coach, you don't realize that they're going good until you see them not going well. And I think being on time is something that I overlooked it all the time. We're at Fox Fitness where I'm training, and where we'll see you guys at the summer camp. Jake lives there during the days, it seems like. So he's not showing up at 6:30 to teach a 6:30 class. He's been there all afternoon. And so he's there. Now, whether class gets started on time or not, usually something happens, or if it doesn't start on time, usually something's popped up that he's got to cover, but somebody else can get the class started. But, there are times, and it's, there are excuses and stuff that, some things are valid. Maybe the class time needs to get bumped back a little bit or something like that, but having a coach that shows up on time and they're reliable, you didn't waste your whole Saturday morning waiting for a coach to show up, and they never did, to unlock the door to get you into the gym. I think, those sort of things, you don't notice them until they happen, and it's like, then that sucked. I could have done something else this Saturday morning than waiting to get an open mat to roll. I think that could be a pretty big one. A coach that's polite. So there's that's another key thing I like to look for. So I appreciate people who are themselves and who are able to joke and have fun, and you would look at the relationship I have with somebody like, that's not a polite relationship. We're teasing each other, we're having that sort of thing happening, but when I bring somebody else into the gym, when I bring a friend or my spouse or something like that, they're polite to that person, and it's not like they're two different people. It's they are showing that person that respect that we were talking about earlier, and you have to know somebody a little bit before you could give them a hard time about some personal things like we do a lot of times on the mats or whatever. But like anybody I bring in to Fox Fitness as a guest, I know that they'll be treated politely. And, in 5 minutes when I'm talking to Jake or we're on the mats, he might be teasing me in a way that wouldn't be appropriate for him to do to that person, which is perfect. I like that. That's fun. That's that personal relationship that you have with somebody. But I like, coach, that's, to me, being polite and respectful to people is a big one, because I just don't want to bring somebody in to train for the first time as like my friend if they're going to be rude. That's not setting that person up for success. It's making me look like I'm training at some kind of a crazy place where people are rude to each other. I don't know. That's kind of a hard one to get past.
I like that point, Byron. And most jiu-jitsu gyms that I've trained at, been a part of, they've had that ability to, have the camaraderie of the guys on the mat, gals on the mat, and then treat visitors with respect. I wanted to touch back on your comments on professionalism and on time. And I wouldn't tell a coach how to run a gym, but as a student who is a regular member of two different gyms, and they both have one thing in common, and that is that the class is structured a certain way. I mean, it's different at both gyms, but each gym I go into, I know that I'm going to get, at one gym, for instance, 20 minutes of cardio and strength and conditioning type stuff first, and then 20 minutes of drilling, and then 20 minutes of instructional, and then open mat. I'm going to get that every time. At the other gym, it's structured a little bit differently, but other students might be different, but I appreciate that. I've been to other gyms where you go in and you're expecting 20, and they're like, oh, we're going to do an hour of strength and conditioning today. Or you walk in, it's like, we're drilling all day. So I don't know what other people think, but I appreciate when classes are structured and when they, for the most part, stick to that structure.
That's a good point, Joe. I've seen a lot of schools who have, what they're going to do every single day too. They'll break it down. Today we're doing this for 20 minutes or whatever. But if you're expecting something and all of a sudden you're doing, an hour of strength and conditioning, and let's say you pulled your hamstring or quad and you don't really want to do frog jumps and this and that, but you were wanting to work some light technique, it's going to be a tough day for you.
Yeah, if you have different classes and you tell me beforehand, that's fine. If you tell me we're going to do jiu-jitsu on Monday and CrossFit on Tuesday, I'll just come on Monday.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that from a student's perspective. If you tell me what to expect when I get there and then you stick with it, I appreciate that.
We talked a little bit about, I think Joe made the point of, if you can't, pay your bill on time, that might very well warrant a conversation, just to say, hey man, about these things happening right now, I'll get you next week, just so they know. Or, hey, looks like I'm going to miss up a couple months of jiu-jitsu until my finances get settled up and I'm able to come back in and train with you guys. And the coach might respond, hey, keep training. We get you caught up when that happens. Who knows? But some things warrant conversations. And so if you're having an issue with your coach or you're disappointed in the way things are going, you have to be careful with how you do this, because you're typically coming from a place of less knowledge base. Like your coach has been teaching for 10 years and you've been training for 10 months. So, hey, coach, I really don't think you teach enough arm bars. That may not be the best thing to say, but coach, I'm a little bit, I want to compete. So is there any way I could focus more or maybe learn a bit more about, the point system or something like that? That's a perfectly valid thing to tell your coach. So, to have these conversations in appropriate ways is a way to better help your coach fit the person that you want them to be. And they might be that, the coach when they talk to Gary is like competition coach. Go, here's how we do this, and here's how you get your points, and here's how you get that advantage. And then Joe comes in, he's talking about defending off an attacker, and it could be because the people have communicated different goals that they have with jiu-jitsu. And so does your coach even know your goal? Does your coach know that your main reason for showing up every day is so you can lose a few pounds every month? Does your coach realize that maybe you're trying to get a little confidence, or the kids are coming to class for to have some more discipline in their lives or something like that? So I think just communicating while you're there, what's the reason you show up, or maybe just letting them know, hey, what it's done for you so far is another way you could kind of communicate that. And I think that's a good way to help set your coach up for success.
And that goes back to every one of us is different. We all have different goals. Like a coach can't basically treat everybody the same, because it really is a business when we break down to it. We become a family atmosphere. Everybody becomes great friends. But, the coach has to make money. You can't lose money each and every month. The school's not going to be around. So everybody's going to be different. The coach needs to get to know you, find out, why you're there. There's always going to be that hardcore competitors. There's always going to be some MMA fighters. There's always going to be some people who just want to lose weight. There's always going to be some people who just like to train. There's also going to be the people who just want to wear the tap-out shirts. You're going to have, a diverse group of individuals. But the crazy thing is, man, the guy who just came in to get in shape turns out to be best friends with the savage killer MMA fighter. It's kind of crazy, the friendships you develop there. But communicate that with the coach. But it's also the coach needs to communicate with you and find out why you're there, so he can, best help you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gary. So if you're the student, you should tell your coach, what you're looking for, what you want to get out of jiu-jitsu. If you're the coach, take the responsibility and ask the student, like what's the main reason you're here, or what do you like most, or that sort of thing, and just get a feel for you should know your students individually, but also you might get a feel for the room and see where things are going, and maybe you could change the course a little bit as far as where you're going, because most of your students are wanting to go in this particular direction. I think that's a good coach can listen well and can observe the students and ask the right questions and help them get to where they want to go.
Yep, and change directions. We may have started off going down this road, but based on what my students want, or what I have is hey, it's time to switch directions a little bit. So that's where that family atmosphere comes in. That's where the coach gets to know the students gets to know the coach, and we find out what's best for the group as a whole.
Yeah, there's a lot of facets to the coach-student relationship, but it is a relationship. So whichever role you're in, and even coaches have their own coaches or have somebody they look up to that's helping them, but there's two sides to the relationship. It's not just my coach is bad. You need to talk to your coach and to work with them and see if they could. Maybe they are bad. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of bad coaches out there, but maybe they just don't understand what you want. So there's two sides to a relationship, and you're half of that relationship. So you could change you, but also you need to realize that they may be coaching them for the wrong thing. I could just imagine, showing up teaching a seminar about, winning tournaments to a class that showed up and wanted to learn about, knife defense. That's going to suck for everybody. No one's going to be into it. They don't care about it. No one's going to learn anything that's of any value to them. It's just it's not going to work. So help Byron, your coach out there, guys.
All the knife fights you've been in, you've got a lot of knowledge, and you can really teach that.
I could try. My teaching skill for the knife fights is not high. I have that knowledge base and the experience, but I lack the ability to communicate it in a way that makes fundamental concepts pop out to my students. So they all get stabbed.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good. I think the jiu-jitsu.
Remember, live students are the only students that can pay your monthly dues.
That's a good point. Another thing that I look for a coach to have a large effect over is the culture of the gym, and is it a safe environment to train? Is it the culture of it competitive, or is it playful, or is it a place where people come and learn and kind of develop their own systems? What is the culture of the gym? And a big chunk of that responsibility is on the coach. So if the gym doesn't feel right to you, or they're just directionally heading the wrong way or whatever, that might be a consideration to look at different places. I don't know. It's easier if you're like moving to a city and you're comparing 3 or 4 gyms to really evaluate that with a professional eye. Like you've been training for a while, you could look at the different gyms, say, hey, I want to train here, or this is a better place. When you're new, typically you kind of pick a place to train, and you might tour a few, but it's really hard to kind of evaluate a lot of these things on a effective level. One coach might be bragging about how much they've competed and how great they were. The other coach may have been even better, but doesn't brag about it very much. So there's a lot to finding the right coach, and then even if you don't, to developing a relationship with a coach that fits you well. I think it's an important thing.
Yeah, I like what you're talking about, that culture safe environment. Being a little bit older grappler by many years. But that's one thing I really look for is safety. I don't really want to, go into a gym. And I know gyms are different. There are some really hardcore competitive gyms, but I don't really want to, train in one every day that, is really hardcore, hitting arm bars hard. And, that's, I like to have fun. I like to be safe, and I want my training partners to be safe with me. I need to go to work the next day, and I know everybody's a little bit different, and that's why I think it's, like Byron said, it's a good idea to check out different gyms. Sometimes you may only have one that you have the option for. There may only be one in town, but if there are more than one, a lot of gyms offer a free week. Some of them offer a free month, and try them out, see what works best, see what fits you the best, what culture, what atmosphere you like, and where you think you're going to excel at.
Yeah, the cool thing about this particular point is, more than any other point we've made so far, there's no wrong or right. Culture is a matter of preference. So if you live someplace where they've got multiple schools, make sure you take in 2 or 3 classes at each one. And if you're 28 years old and you wrestled in high school and you think you could be really good at this jiu-jitsu thing, and you visit a gym and Gary and Byron are playing footsie in the corner and I'm doing Tai Chi over on the other side of the mat, that's probably not the right gym for you. You need to find one that's got more alpha males and competitive nature to it. And there's a gym for everyone if you're fortunate enough to live in a town that's got multiple gyms.
So, Joe, you're saying Byron and I are not alpha males?
Well, we're all a little bit long in the tooth, Gary. So
Gary's version of footsie could get my knee broken.
we play footsies the alpha male style. How's that?
Yep, heel hook.
Yeah. And I mean, Joe, you're going back to you're talking about cultures, and you're talking about if you wrestled in college, you're probably looking for much more competitive, and some schools are self-defense oriented. I mean, some people are looking for self-defense, some people are looking for competition, some people want to be MMA fighters, some people want to lose weight. But the good point I liked what you said, Joe, is you said try 2 or 3 classes, and sometimes one class isn't just enough. And like we said, a lot of schools offer a free week. I see a lot of schools now offering free months. More than one class is probably going to be a little bit better for you. One class, you may miss something. You may not get the whole culture there. So, if you can, try a couple different classes at a couple of different gyms and see what's going to work best for you. Because, jiu-jitsu is a journey. And I think it's easier if we start at one school and stay at one school. I don't really want to change schools every, 6 months. I want to, just like when, I pick a wife, I want to pick one wife. I'm not, wanting to switch,
every day.
No
need to make 2 women mad at you, Gary.
Yeah.
Gary, you got an anniversary coming up or something?
You guys are going to have to remember for me, because I think I forgot last year. So I'm counting on you guys.
Gary's got a good point. You kind of look at what your goals are. You got to have, if you know what your goals are, maybe just like to train, and that's your good goal, and or that's your kind of your why. Is this fun? That's kind of what I'm looking at now. Is I really enjoy it. If you're wanting to compete, or you're wanting to develop a certain aspect of your game or something like that, these are all factors, and you can't have everything on the table at the same time. I want the best competition coach. I want the best self-defense coach. I want the best weight loss coach, and all these things. You kind of need to look at those things and select what's the main one for you. And it's kind of like, that old saying, if you try to catch 2 rabbits, you'll often end up catching none, or something like that. What's that saying, Joe?
I think that's exactly how it went, actually.
If you chase 2 rabbits, you will catch neither. And
that's correct.
That's a great saying.
Yeah, so I guess that brings us to our article of the week. And it was it's on the BJJ Brick podcast website. You can go check it out. And this article actually was a result of a post I made on Facebook. I posted an old Chinese proverb, said if you chase two rabbits, you will catch neither. And I'm thinking of this from the perspective of those technique of the month club type of guys. You know, they're just from one technique to the next, and they don't spend enough time on one of them to get good at it. And we had a listener, though, that just read the quote and posted, I disagree. I don't think this has anything to do with jiu-jitsu. So that piqued my interest, and I exchanged some messages with him. And he was looking at it from the standpoint of, if you only go for a singular technique or submission from a particular position, then it's easy for your opponent to defend. So he's thinking if you put three rabbits in the corner of a pin and you start to narrow in on them, one of them is going to panic and make a mistake, and then that's your easiest rabbit to catch. And so if you're doing jiu-jitsu and you can put your opponent in a position to where they're going to make a mistake, and then you're going to capitalize on that. An example would be from closed guard. If I sit up into the hip bump sweep and I threaten that sweep, if my opponent does nothing, then the sweep is the easy rabbit to catch. If he posts his hand on the mat, then the Kimura is the easy rabbit. And if he drives back into me, then the guillotine is the easy rabbit. There's three techniques that are right there in one position, and depending on what my opponent does, the one's going to be easy to catch.
Joe, I want to know how you did the drawing. I think your art for this is awesome.
Yeah, everybody go to the website and check it out. I actually paid $15,000. I thought this was worth the money. I hired a professional artist to do this. Can you read this? What's that say? BJJ Brick at the bottom. I think Byron did it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
No, I really like it. It reminds me of your when you were doing the fork kills more people or whatever than anything else. The drawings you had on that one.
You pictured that one, Gary.
Yeah, I don't know.
More people die from the spoon than the knife.
Yeah, that's what I like. But yeah, I thought the article's great, and I love the way Chris came up, with a different way, because I was thinking your way there, Joe, too. The technique of the month club. But when Chris explained what he was talking about, I see exactly what he's talking about. We're going from 1, 2, 3 or whatever. We're catching the easy one, or we're setting them up for option 2, option 3. So
So
I like.
Thanks to Chris Hubner, who's a local up there in Wichita with Byron and Gary. But I was listening to, this is new since I wrote this article. I was listening to Straight Blast Gym, their podcast, and they were talking about posture, pressure, and opportunity. And
I think it's possibilities, because it's already
possibilities. Okay, yeah, the 3 Ps. That's same thing. Only I'm not that smart. But if you don't know how to put 3 rabbits in a small pen, that's a great way. You get a superior posture. You apply pressure, and you look at what your opponent's going to do. And there's your rabbits. So, for instance, when you sit up into that hip bump sweep, what you're doing is you're getting superior posture, and you're putting pressure on them to sweep them that direction. And how they react to that posture and pressure is going to be what allows you to pick the easiest rabbit to catch.
Yeah, but Joe, take a look at those rabbits. Their ears are very long. If I have you in guard, and instead of grabbing the collar, I'm going straight for the ear. You know how much force I have, and there's no way that rabbit's going to be able to get posture when I'm holding one of those ears.
Well, Gary, that's actually something that I have to deal with when I grapple, because my ears hang low. They wobble to and fro. Sometimes my opponent takes them and ties them.
Joe's hit song is coming out next week.
Anyway, Joe, guys, go check out the article and let us know what you think.
Yeah, I think it's great to look at this from both perspectives. If you ask me what am I training, I typically have something that I'm training, like a theme I'm working on, and that, to me, that brings deeper enjoyment, and it gives me some direction. A lot of times when I start rolling with somebody, I'll say, "What are you working on?" Or "Are you working on anything?" And most of the time they say no. But if they say something, we're definitely going to get to that position during the roll, so they can work on that. We'll start there or we end up there, that's fine. But I like having one rabbit to chase while I'm rolling, as far as, I'm working on back attack, or I'm working on guillotine, or I'm working on triangles. I have something that I'm working on for direction. And sure, there's lots of little sub-rabbits out of there. And then, Chris's thing is really smart. You're rolling, you can't always just force the one thing you want to have happen and get success. Like, you need to have a couple of options. And a perfect, easy example is either I force you to get swept, or in defending that sweep, I set up a submission. And if you can find those situations, jiu-jitsu is going to start to get easier for you, because you could have a really good sweep. The better your sweep is, the better your setup's going to be for the submission as well. And that's great. And I really appreciate you guys talking so good about my very poor artwork. I struggled to find it. Every time Joe writes an article, or I make an article, or Gary wrote the article that he did, I want to have some kind of a picture with it. And a lot of times it's just words. I just write the title out in words. But I was like, man, this is fun with the rabbits. I got to do something. So I drew some rabbits with a Sharpie, and I made it into a digital image. And I noticed after it was all over, the guy has 5 fingers on one hand and 4 on the other. Man, that's bad.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
But hey, I know you guys all appreciate Byron's drawing skills. You've seen it a couple times, but if you really want to appreciate his drawing skills, check out the BJJ Brick event number 2, June 14th through 16th. 14th, it's at Fox Fitness, foxfitnessbjj.com, Fox Fitness, Wichita, Kansas. Basically, Friday night is open mat. Saturday is incredible seminars. Shamir Chantre, Gina Franson, they've both been on this show. They have both been here to Wichita and had seminars. They're incredible. That's the meat and potatoes day. Basically, Sunday is Byron is going to have a seminar, the BJJ Brick Crew. You don't want to miss that. But what Byron may do is show off his drawing skills. And I bet you could persuade Byron to draw a picture of you at the BJJ Brick event. And I know a lot of people are coming just for that. Byron is really in demand for that. So, if you want to get your picture drawn, maybe throw $1 Byron's away, and, who knows what he'll come up with. But he comes up with some really good stuff. He's very talented, not at jiu-jitsu, but at drawing. So, that's a great reason to come to the vacation destination, June 14th through 16th, Wichita, Kansas, at the one and only Fox Fitness.
Yeah, I do enjoy drawing like the character style drawings of Gary and Joe. And if you wanted that done, it will look nothing like you, and I put some effort into it.
Yeah, it's $1 if you want a picture drawn of you by Byron, but it's $5 if you want a picture of you and Gary drawn by Byron.
Oh, there's a deal.
It's worth the investment.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, if you keep that, for a long time, it might actually be worth something. No, I doubt it.
The paper it's printed is drawn on. Guys, I want to give a quick mention about Patreon. If you want to support the podcast, that's a great way to do it. There's a link in the show notes. I'll add a 5-inch gi patch for BJJ Brick, and I'll send you a sticker as well. Our newest Patreon supporter is Brian. Thanks, Brian, for signing up and supporting the podcast on Patreon, and it means a lot to us. So check it out if you want to help keep this show going strong and producing possibly better content or different content is on the horizon. That's one way you could help us reach those goals. So thank you guys for all the Patreon support, and thanks especially to our newest Patreon supporter, Brian.
Yep. Byron, I'm glad you didn't forget about our Patreon supporters, because I kind of brushed right over that and forgot to go to that. But, hey, I got a question for you guys. What do you do if you forget your belt at home?
Put on suspenders.
Good point. I'm talking about your jiu-jitsu belt. You go to practice and it's not there. Well, and it's not a no-gi day. It's actually a gi
day. Well, at that point, I think you have a couple options. One of my strongly favor. One, you could just, I didn't bring my belt, and you probably didn't realize till you walked into the gym. You you say, hey, I got something to come up, and you could leave. That's not a good option.
No.
It might be if your coach is kind of maybe uptight about that, or maybe pretty much as like wants you to have that. Test the waters a little bit if you don't know. Typically, you could say, hey, coach, I forgot my belt. Have anything that could maybe get me out of this jam? And they could probably have like a loaner belt that you could borrow. It may not be the right belt, probably a downgrade to a white belt if you're any sort of a color belt. And because they seem to always have a few white belts laying around. That's one option, and it's not a bad thing to get to train today, even if you have to wear the belt that doesn't match your actual skill level. Joe, what would you do?
Well, it just varies from gym to gym. I actually have known of a gym that had like a really bizarre off-colored belt that you had to wear if you forgot your belt. And my kids did Taekwondo for a few years, and they got given a hard time if they forgot their belt. And but other gyms, they really almost care less, right? Like I said, there's always a loaner belt there. The two gyms that I go to, I think what I would do actually right now is I would wait till after class had started, assuming I got there just barely on time like I always do, realized I forgot my belt. I wouldn't line up without my belt. But once class was started and the warm-ups went away, I would ask my coach if it was okay to join the gym. I'm pretty confident both of them would say yes, and that's how I would handle that.
What about tucking your gi into your gi pants? Would that be an option?
Yeah, okay, Gary.
It'd be definitely a good day to have a rash guard if you're going to go beltless. And you can expect to be tied up in knots by your own lapel by anybody wanting to play that sort of a game.
Yeah.
I always wear a rash guard.
It again.
I always wear a rash guard, and actually I don't forget my belt hardly ever, but I do forget a rash guard once in a while, and that's a dilemma for me. It's like I can't decide whether I want to go without a rash guard or whether I want to go home in a sweat-soaked T-shirt. Those are kind of my two options. I guess I have three. I could just go home shirtless, but that's a dilemma for me.
Last time Joe went home shirtless, there were women just chasing Joe's car the whole way. So he can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I recommended for Joe to do that. So I look at this question, and I think of the times I forgot my belt. It's because I wash it. So just today, I wore a blue gi, and I had my belt on, and I got home, I threw them on the wash machine, and I hit go, and right now they're hanging up and they're air drying. If I grab my white gi tomorrow, I need to remember to go down stairs and get my belt and throw it in my bag. If I forget that, it's just hanging up with my blue gi. This has happened several times. What I've done is I've actually purchased a second belt, the same rank that I am, and I keep it in my gym bag, and I just wear it for the occasions I forget my belt. So it's very hard for me to forget my belt twice in a row. I've never done that, but I've always had a backup black belt in my gym bag, and it's a little bit different. that particular belt is made out of like the gi material.
Leather.
It's made of like it looks different than my normal belt. And Jake, it's rare enough I forget it, but he's like, "Oh, you get your different belt on today," and he kind of comments about it, or I forgot my other belt. And I don't have a stripe on that belt, and I haven't updated it yet, I guess. But it doesn't. Nobody seems to notice whether I have my stripe on or not. But
that's really an interesting idea. I'd never heard anybody mention that before. Having a second belt. Certainly, there's no coach that would be upset if you had two belts and he gave you a stripe on your belt and you went home and put a matching stripe on your other belt. I mean, I just think now that you mention it, Byron, the idea of having two belts is a very good idea.
Well, thank you,
Byron
Joe.
comes up with a lot of good ideas.
Man, he's brilliant, that guy.
Yeah, but he doesn't win the internet this week.
No, but he's close second.
I thought I was second.
That was Gary in third.
But I still medaled, guys.
Yep, you did.
I'm on the podium.
I was just thinking of Gary as the one who awards the award.
Oh, yes. He's the presenter.
Yep.
He's a bigger man for that.
So you're in second place, but you're still in last place, Byron, because Gary's got a higher position in this whole thing.
Well, maybe next week it'll all change. I do know next week we have Miles Lucas on the podcast. Really had a good time talking with him. He is a relatively new black belt who had a really interesting Reddit post about how he never thought he would become a black belt. And then we also get into some other topics about starting jiu-jitsu and also a lot into about breathing in jiu-jitsu and proper breathing technique and how you can increase your efficiency by breathing properly, and something that we really haven't talked about in 300 episodes. Very little anyway. So
which I think is very important.
Gary thinks as he takes another breath, it's very important. So that'll be next week, and maybe that'll give me an opportunity to beat Joe in the internet that next week, but probably not.
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Me and Joe got to kind of make a plan on how I could get it, even working together to do that without Gary's knowledge. That would be a way to do it. Not a chance.
I'll award it to Joe every week.
This contest is rigged. I quit.
Yeah.
Joe's nice
in
to
the
me.
mail, Gary.
Yep. Joe's nice to me, Byron.
Man, I feel like I'm playing 4 versus 5 here.
Well, if you had a better attitude, it wouldn't be as bad. Just go back and listen to the start of the show, and everything will come out all right.
Will it? Maybe it'll make sense. Well, I've had a good time, and we look forward to catch you guys next week. Until then, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better, guys. We'll see you on the mats.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.